Hi everybody, this is David. I wanted to share with you a message today on this Thursday of Easter week. Usually we're preparing for a Passover celebration at the church followed by a foot washing, and it's very meaningful, probably my favorite service of the year because it's intimate and meaningful and moving, and good food involved as well, so that's always a plus. But what this day means to me is the celebrate the Passover meal is something we do, and it's a reminder of how the Lord rescued the children of Israel from slavery in Egypt, and they were commanded to keep this Passover meal as a reminder of how the Lord did this with great power, and it's a reminder to us of how the Lord can help to rescue us from our own slavery, our own addictions, our own hurtful habits that we might be involved in. And the meal itself was a reminder to us that there's supposed to be a lamb roasted with fire and unleavened bread and bitter herbs. And that lamb pictures in the Lord's word innocence, and that we are to innocently try to follow what the Lord teaches, which means just a willingness to be led and not focusing on our own strength, but on the Lord's strength to help us. And the unleavened bread, it doesn't have any yeast in it because yeast represents something that puffs us up, sort of our own ego in this sense, where we try to do what's good, which is what bread pictures, without thinking about ourselves, without thinking of thought of reward. And then the bitter herbs is a reminder that it's hard and that it's difficult to try to do those things, especially consistently. And so that's what the meal reminds us of. And then at that meal, the Lord was sharing it with his disciples, and he instituted the Holy Supper, where they were to take bread and wine as reminders of the Lord. And we're told that the bread and the wine both symbolize things that are everything we need to be fed spiritually. The bread pictures the Lord's love and goodness, which nourishes us, and the wine symbolizes the Lord's wisdom, which is instruction we need to help guide us. But after this meal, we go into the sanctuary usually and have a foot washing ceremony, and this was something that the Lord did at the Last Supper, where he washed his disciples' feet, and a sign of his love for them and that the Lord came to serve. And I wanted to share some of the story for you. This is from John chapter 13. It reads, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, rose from supper, laid aside his garments, took a towel, and girded himself. After that he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. And of course, Peter said, no, you can't possibly wash my feet, because you're the Lord and I'm Peter. And he said, well, if I don't wash your feet, you can't have any part with me. So Peter, of course, taking things to extreme, says, well, you have to wash all of me then. And the Lord says, no, if I just wash your feet, that's all you need to do. But then the story goes on. So when he had washed their feet, taken his garments and sat down again, he said to them, do you know what I've done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you say, well, for so I am. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Most assuredly I say to you, a servant is not greater than his master, nor is he who is sent greater than he who sent him. If you know these things, blessed are you if you do them, or happy are you if you do them. It's a beautiful story, and it's a beautiful thing to reenact because there's such a tenderness in it, and it's also such an act of humility to wash someone else's feet, to kneel down before them and wash the lowest parts of themselves, which might be dirty, and the parts of us that we usually don't find very attractive, and to have that done to us as well. And the Lord actually tells us in the writings for the new church that foot washing was an act of charity, meaning one ought not to dwell on the evils of another person. It was also an act of humility, meaning the cleansing of another from evils, like filth from the body. So what a beautiful thing to think about on this day is, how do I try to look for the good in other people and not focus on what I might consider their faults or their shortcomings, and to let other people see me in that same way. So I know it's a difficult time. I know that maybe it's getting frustrating at this point, and devastating to see all the loss that people are experiencing. And I hope that in this time we can raise our thoughts to the Lord and knowing that the Lord is caring for us and protecting us, and that we can be a part of that by trying to serve and care for each other, and to not focus on the difficult things or the parts of others that we don't find attractive, but focus on their good qualities. And I think that will lift us all up and help us to have a better experience. So may you have a blessed day. If you do celebrate this Passover today, I hope you have a wonderful time, and I'll be thinking of you. And take good care of yourselves, keep healthy, and lots of love to you all.